Welcome. You are now tuned in to Community Point of View by Mike Kesner and Charles.
Before we start this conversation, I just wanted to read a couple news that's been circulating. So the Department of Education declassified some profession. I'm going to just read a little bit of them. So we have nursing, education degree, social work, MSW, DSW, public health, physician assistant, occupation therapist, physical therapy, audiology, speech language pathology, business masters, engineering degree, counseling and therapy. Those profession has been declassified. I don't know what that means. And I think the idea is to limit the funding that goes to those professions. And this is going to start May 26th. So what do you think? What is that? Especially counseling and therapy profession. I mean,
honestly, this is the first time I've heard this. Okay. So my thoughts right away, I'm thinking of, well, I need more information. I want more information now, because obviously LADC, chemical dependency, that's what the field that I'm in. You being in social work, obviously that's important information.
Yeah, I think that's what Donald Trump is doing right now, is making decisions without actually talking to Congress or talking to people who are involved in those spaces. I think we'll know more. I just wanted to put this out there. So if you're considering any of those professions in the future, find out some information, because what might happen is there'll be little to no financial aid, little to no grants to support those funding, those programs, or positions. Who knows? But just want to put that out there. And I think something else that I also want to talk about before we move into our main conversation is all of the happenings in Duluth. There's been a whole lot of controversies about nonprofits, specifically Community Action Duluth. It's a hot topic issue right now. It involves Class C Deadly. I think it's important to weigh in on that issue. The allegations are that Class C Deadly is sexually harassing employees, mismanaging funds, and not necessarily providing the good leadership to folks at the Community Action Duluth. When the story first broke, it was that Community Action Duluth is not paying the farmers their fees for the summer farmers program, and fired the manager of that. So in my understanding of nonprofit, especially during the Trump administration, there's a lot of funding cuts to grants, right? So if you're in the garden program, if you're in the nonprofit program, you will see a decreased funding for any programs. So the first thought that came to mind was, okay, do they have all the fundings needed to pay all these positions? You have to be innovative each year to retain those funding or to get more funding, because it's very competitive. So if Community Action Duluth does not have a grant writer in their organization, a grant writer who is also experienced, really creative, they'll lose a lot of funding. Now, I don't want to blame everything on race, right? But an individual called John Ramos, who leads the Duluth Monitor, aggressively went into this organization to demand a bunch of documents from Community Action Duluth. I guess the interaction didn't go well with John Ramos, and he got aggressive about what he's looking for. John Ramos is an investigative journalist. He's investigated a lot of folks in the community, and he's done that successfully. But the difference between this case is, the aggressiveness. There was a press release yesterday where all the employees and AFSCME came in to demand answers from Class C. Now, I'm thinking about it from a race perspective. Does race have anything to do here? Most likely not. We'll never know.
But do you want to be real about things though, or like how I mean, from what I get to see from my perspective, I mean, do we know specifically? But I know that there's racial issues that are underlying and more covert in this area than anybody ever wants to open their eyes to or admit. Absolutely.
Who knows? I mean, we can speculate all we want,
Yeah,
but
right.
we're not in that organization.
So here's the language that I'm hearing. And first and foremost, she's a female
She's a female.
of color. So prejudice, implicit bias, right?
Right.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
And there's lots of documentation, and there's lots of psychological surveys and assessments, and there's lots of work that across this country regarding just that.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't think it's speculation is what I'm getting at. I really don't. I don't. I know that any type of female that is in any type of position is threatening to a lot of people.
It is. It is. And I'm not gonna justify anything.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on there.
Right.
I mean, not paying workers is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people put time into things, pay them, find the fundings to do that, and don't double back. You know, just pay people. And I think that's something I just want to put out there. And if the African American community leaders can't stand up and ask questions or be in the conversation, that's a problem. Personally, I think most African American leaders in this community are just doing what they're doing for the credit, right? They're not doing it for the main point. I mean, there's some folks who are actually putting in the work, but we need to stand up. We need to stand up for folks who are going through things in this community. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm a very controversial person. I am not all perfect. We're all humans. We've done things that we shouldn't have done or participated in things that we shouldn't have done. The fact that I've gone through my own legal shit doesn't mean I need to shut up about what someone else is going through. I think we all have that responsibility as community leaders to at least find out, figure out exactly what's going on, reach out and support whoever is going through things. We all need mentors in this community. And when you have that responsibility of leading an agency, you need mentors. If not, you're going to do things wrong. And when you do things wrong, people are waiting to pounce on you. So until the Black community in Duluth stand up and come together, there's nothing that's going to happen in this community, in the Black community, because everyone just wants credit. Everyone just wants the title, but not do the work. That's where I'm at.
I'm hearing your voice. Yeah, this honestly, it's refreshing to hear a solid voice from an opinion that's not afraid to speak.
And I think that's where we're at in this community. There's a lot of keyboard warriors that's going to come out and come at you because you're saying something that needs to be said. And I think it's important to have people who can speak and lead with action. I think we need leaders like that in this community. Most people will, I'll speak for most African Americans, most people don't have the mentorship to do things right the first time. Some people do, so that's why we need to come together and just support our homes, support our people, whether they're doing the right thing or going the wrong path, support them, show up for them, provide them the mentorship that they need, provide the advice that they need, and don't just let them be. I mean, I can mention a bunch of community leaders who are keeping quiet, with this case with the community action in Duluth. They're keeping quiet because they fear retaliation. They fear that someone might not vote them back in. There's a lot of community leaders that are spineless, and I say that boldly. Most of you African-American community leaders, you are spineless and you're doing all of what you do because of the credit, because of the title. You need to stand up for people in this community, and you guys know yourself, to be honest with you. Don't be a leader if you can't act or do things to support your own. I could go on. But anyways, let's just segue.
You continue. I'm learning a lot right
Let's
now.
just segue into a different conversation. And to be honest with you, I am not perfect either. I just want to put that out there. I have had some backgrounds that are not so, distant, right? And like I said, because I have those backgrounds doesn't mean I can't speak for my people. Doesn't mean I can't make comments, right? And if you feel like you want to come on my page and bring, be like a keyboard warrior, I will tell it to you like I need to, because no one has the right to put anyone down. You have the right to bring people up, The main goal of this podcast is to provide information and support our community. And I think that's why I'm here. What do you think about this?
You know what? I don't know how I'm going to match that passion right now. That was solid. My mind is going many different directions.
And it's fine.
You know, and I like the idea behind the idea of motivational type of avenue or a framework that you're kind of setting as far as standing up for your people.
Yeah.
Speaking your mind. Mentorship. Those are some of the things that stuck out in my mind as you're speaking. And with the background where I'm from, I guess the one thing that really sticks out to me when it comes to leadership, mentorship, is just specifically from the point of view of men.
Right.
And the lack of leadership and the lack of follow through with mentorship for men, specifically from the community I come from, which is Fond du Lac Reservation.
Right.
And, you know, growing up out on the reservation and living that life, I got a unique perspective that I honestly didn't understand it was as unique as it was until I got of age and opened my eyes to the reality of where I come from.
Right.
So yeah, I guess, you know, this whole development of what we're doing right here to the main, I think one of the biggest things that I've worked on up to this point, and one of the things that I have created, and I'm really working hard to create it so that it is solid anchor and has a solid base, is my voice.
Right.
Plain and simple. Being able to stand up for what I know is right for me without questioning and second guessing my values, my principles, because of outside social influence or because of other person's point of view even. I've allowed outside sources to dictate my movement, dictate my responses, to the point where I compromise myself the majority of my life. And it took me a long time through this 30 years of addiction to finally gather up everything and get to this point where I'm at right now, where I'm capable of even sharing at the level that I'm sharing.
Right.
This has taken work. Yeah. My communication was not very good 2.5 years ago. But my point is that it feels good.
Right.
It feels good. And I'm the one thing as a result of speaking up and speaking out most recently is that everything that I feel, everything that I understand is good for me, I need to stand up for in order for me to feel good. And it is correct. It is correct. When somebody's being disrespectful, there's no second guessing myself anymore as far as what to do next. I'm working on being able to respond right away in an appropriate manner and not let any other, like I said, even a business, say it's a business that I'm working for, if their values and their principles don't align with mine, I'm going to speak to it. And if I'm working for a company that our principles and our values are not, and our behaviors are not aligning with those principles and values, that's something that I'm coming to the understanding that my voice is what's necessary in order to bring that to light at times. So
at what detriment though? Are you going to lose your job if
that's
you speak
fine
up?
That's fine. I'm coming into my own with that understanding that if I don't do that for myself, I lose a piece of myself.
Yes.
And then
absolutely.
I have you know what cognitive dissonance is, right?
Yeah.
That hurts. When I have values and principles, and I'm genuinely a pretty authentic and altruistic person, and there's a person, even a relationship. This is a relationship. A company I work for is a relationship. You and I are a relationship. If you're talking in a value and you're saying that this is what you live by, but your behaviors are different, that's going to make me think something. I'm going to question the reality of the truth of what you've just shared as far as your values, right? So if like you're working for a company that in the same regard, where these are the rules, this is the way it's supposed to be, but the behaviors aren't there's no action on those policies or anything that's aligning, that's not for me anymore. Right. I'm not going to give up my soul and give up my life because of a company that, you know, I have other opportunities for. But I also feel like I'm not going to stay quiet anymore either. I'm not just going to run from it because the one thing that I realize though is there's so many other people that are afraid to speak up, that what I've found is when you're the risk taker and you do choose to speak up, all of a sudden you make connections.
Or you get a hit.
Or you take the hit.
You take the hit.
Or you take the hit. But you know what? It really feels good, though. I would rather live for one day for what it is that I believe in, rather than live the rest of my life for somebody else's ideals. It's just, you know what I mean? I'd rather than not say anything is what I meant by that. Not saying anything and compromise what it is that I should be saying.
Okay, so let me ask you, in what situations would you be that person? In every situation or in certain spaces? What does that look like? And while we're thinking about that, what does Minnesota nice mean?
Minnesota nice is
not say what you're thinking, but smile and fake things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then as soon as you walk out the door,
then
it's a culture. It's an entire culture that is afraid of the truth. They're afraid of hearing exactly what it is that's on people's mind for some reason, and it's created this honestly, it's the most there's a whole dysfunctional culture out there that I come from, that I lived around my entire life, and I think and I knew my values didn't stick to that, and I knew that I felt off for a very long time because that's not the way I want to live. I don't like that. I'm the guy that's going to tell you to your face, if I don't like something, we're gonna squash it right here. We're gonna figure this out right here. I'm not gonna wait for you to leave and then try to go to the next person and talk about what I should have said to you, right? Let's just deal with it now. Why don't wait till you leave the room. A lot of people have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
They think it's confrontational. They think it's too much. You know why? Because they're living on a level of not being able to deal with conflict management, right? They don't understand it. Their relative understanding of the truth is darkness.
And because we live in a culture that accepts that.
Yes.
A culture that accepts Minnesota nice.
Yeah.
You just smile, bless your heart, bless your soul, kind of vibe.
Yeah, and then flick you off when you drive by. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and I think it comes with age as well, too. Age and experience. When you've suffered enough, when you've gone, half your life pleasing people, not speaking out when you should be, a lot of things happen. You get trampled on. People just forget you, right? Your wishes do not come through. And one of the things that I've learned while I was in school, I'll just give a brief example, is during grading, let's just say I had a test. I understood the question differently than my white counterpart, right? So I would just do the exam and then forget it, not go talk to the professor. But then the white person, just to make it easy, will go and this is how I saw this question, and I don't think I should get this grade because this is how I saw it. And the professor is gonna grade it based on that understanding. So for me, for a long time, I've just been that shy person. I don't want to confront anyone. I don't want to disrupt the peace. I just want to go with the flow. But that really did not get me anywhere. It reminds me of that statement that says, well-behaved women often don't make history. Have you heard about that?
It sounds like it's been said.
Yeah, it's been said. So if you're well-behaved and you let things pass, you'll just... Yeah, sure. You're a good person, but you're not gonna get anywhere. So I mean, it goes along with what you're saying right now. I think we're coming of age to the point where now we feel like we have the greater responsibility of speaking out and speaking our truth. As a matter of fact, this country has gotten to that point where all we need to do, or all we're doing right now, is speaking our truth. This is what's working for me. This is what's not working. And one of the things that I live by is how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you do one thing is how you do everything. If your room is messy in the morning, your mind is messy, right? If you're keeping quiet about confronting something, most likely you're keeping quiet about confronting some of the things that you need to be doing, some of those priorities in your life. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you don't speak out, chances are you're losing out on a lot of things. So you're leaving money at the table somehow, somewhere. So I like that.
And I also the one thing I want to add on to this is, and this is the cool thing about some of the cognitive work that I'm working on and the understanding which can relate to a woman in a workplace. If she is somebody that is confident and has the ability to tell you no and tell you what's on her mind, she's seen as somebody that's a dragon lady of sorts or a beast. But then if she decides to quiet herself, then she's not competent for the job. And that falls back, and I'm going to say this probably a lot, is implicit bias. Implicit bias for me, and that understanding of what that means to me and being able to reflect on the dark areas of my type 1 response is what's going to help open my mind up and create that change that's necessary in order for me to see natural responses that I've never been able to see before. A response like that is something that can change, but you have to be willing to take a look at it and halt the brakes and reflect on it, on ask yourself, well, why do I think like that? Why do I think like immediately? No matter what, we all have blind spots. Right. No matter what, we all carry prejudice, no matter what. And I found this so interesting. So there's an AIT test done by Harvard University. You can do it online if you want. It'll take like 3 minutes. It's an automatic test. It's Oprah Winfrey did it. And it's to test for automatic implicit biases, right? And she did the test, and what she came out as a result, they're very simple, right? And what it stated at the back was that white equals good to her, black equals bad. And she ended up taking the test again. That can't be. I'm a very powerful, proud black woman, right? And but because of our conditioning, because of our social environment, because of what we see in the news every day, those types of biases are what attach ourselves to our conditioned responses, right? So if you take that test, it'll be interesting, and maybe to show that. So it's automatic, even though, and that's where that causes that cognitive dissonance, because like for me, like I don't want to see natives as bad, but because of history and the way the things that I've heard in the public and in the news, like it's back there somewhere.
It is.
And those create all kinds of problems. And I think we need to speak more about that in today's world in order for us to start attacking that, in order to open up the eyes of people to change. That's just my opinion.
2 reactions to that. How does AI see that? AI has been trained nowadays.
No, I'm sorry. This is an automatic implicit.
No, I know. So the test is one thing.
Yep.
Right? But how does AI see race? Like that's something we need to think about, because who is training AI? Who's like leading that front?
Interesting.
Because then they're training AI based on their reality.
Oh, correct. Yes.
To like distinguish race.
Yes.
So what is good? Is white good?
Yes.
Is black good? So AI right now is learning that white is good and dark is evil.
Right. Depending on the language and the code
Exactly. So this problem will persist in the future if we don't change the reality of things. When you were saying that too, the other reaction is there's been a lot of experience, a lot of things in the news that suggest that black is evil, right? Or there's a lot of things. Let's just give an example of places in Duluth, right? If I were to be looking at it from a white perspective, right? No person of color is competent enough to lead anything in Duluth. That's how a white person is going to see it. Because they're easily prone to do criminal things. Okay. I'll give you an example. Currently, the Classy Deadly problem, right? The community action Duluth problem. Before Classy got in that position, it was the O'Neill, was this Steve O'Neill's wife that was leading that charge? And she did an absolutely awesome job. Nothing happened. But when Classy got in there, things started to fall apart. I can talk about myself. I worked in a nonprofit. Bunch of shit happens, excuse my language, that say that I'm not a bit competent when it comes to leading, So when you look at history, especially in Duluth, I know a lady at UMD that got fired for whatever reason. Her name was Janet Hayes. She left the Duluth community and went to Canada. If we look at history, we're going to see a pattern. We're going to see a bunch of African American people who have left their job embarrassed based on legal issues, moved into different things. If AI were to look at that history, AI would say definitely African Americans or Black people do not have leadership skills, or most likely to get compromised in a leadership role, right? Which is not really true, because what's lacking in the African American community is mentorships, right? What's lacking in the African American community is people who can stand up for people, right? We can try to explain or try to redirect conversation to, like, you know, no there's a whole lot of things that we can say, but I hear you. I mean, I want to take that test, but when you look at history, when you look at what's happening, especially in our community, it doesn't give really a good feeling that any person of color could successfully lead an organization currently, you know, and unfortunately that's the truth. So how do we redefine ourselves, right? How do we get that public image? Is it even possible?
So what just popped up in my mind is I watched a documentary. This was only a few weeks ago on Hurricane Katrina, and it was interesting because they showed 2 news clips. One news clip, they were both in the same area of the flooding that was occurring. One news clip had a white couple, male and female, and they had a bunch of groceries, and they're up waist deep in water, and they must have went and raided one of the grocery stores or whatever to feed their family. And that's how it was worded. It said this couple was foraging for food so that they could feed their family. Same area, couple, Black. Instead of being titled that, looters robbing local stores for whatever.
Right.
Same time, same area. That right there speaks on the polarity that of the issue that we're dealing with at one single event. Two different articles, same pictures,
right.
2 different colors, 2 different stories. Absolutely amazing.
I mean, I think
it speaks louder than words.
It depends on how you describe things or how you explain things away. For people to really understand the craziness in Duluth. In the country. I'm still dialed into Duluth. Anyways, let's just move into a different conversation. We have a limited time here.
Yeah, for sure.
And this conversation this podcast is pretty much a conversational podcast. The goal is to invite more individuals to participate in this podcast, to provide some more community resources and all that. We're not definitely perfect in this. We're just, going with the flow. But we wanted to introduce something, which is the word of the day. Word of the day. I want to learn Ojibwe, and I think doing the word of the day each time would be really great. So what is the word of the day?
Well, if you want to go with the word of the day that we were speaking about earlier, this is I'm going to give a little bit of background. This was something that I just shared recently on some of my social media platforms. And this is a slang word that I was taught 30 years ago. And I grew up on the Fond du Lac Reservation, so it's Ojibwe culture. And what I was taught was throwing your finger or your thumb through your finger like this, and when you're around somebody that's being boasty or they're bragging about something, this is called that little pee symbol right here, and you throw that out there and you say, "We nug." We nug. Yeah, and you and it's got to be enunciated. You almost have to have a look like, "We nug." We nug. Yeah, like knock it off. Quit being so BS. Yeah, BS. It's a bunch of BS. So yeah, that would be the word of the day. And I started some controversy on specifically on a Facebook post that actually went across North America regarding this. And it was really cool because, not the controversy part obviously, but the first part of it is I wanted to share something from my cultural background that just kind of popped in my head one day. I was at work, obviously, when you see the video. And I was like, oh, wow, I haven't shared that. We haven't used that in a while. That was something that we used to say to each other all the time. Yeah. So after posting that, reservations from across North America shared that is actually older than even 30 years ago. That goes back into the 60s, even the 50s when that was used, which I found very interesting.
That's cool.
But yeah, the one backlash part of it though that I didn't believe, that I didn't even think that far ahead, but there was some negative energy thrown my way because of the fact that I'm light skinned. So there was people that were responding that didn't believe that I was Native, didn't believe I come from a community out there, didn't understand that I know Ojibwe. And then they decided to, there was a lot of correction. And I found, you know what I found very interesting with it's pronounced Weenuk with a K. It's pronounced different ways across the different reservations. And so it's a dialect, right? It's a different way of spelling. And what I found very interesting, and I feel like I need to say this again because I find this very interesting. I'm getting corrected with an Ojibwe slang word using English letters. For me, I think that's all I got to say. For the most part, the cool part of it, with all the people that decided to throw a little bit of hate my way and tried to correct me, there was a lot of good people that actually were sticking up for me in the comments before I even got to the point to even want to respond. And I really appreciated that because I did, honestly, like I told you earlier, light skin, growing up on the Fond du Lac Reservation, I ain't gonna lie, I've dealt with that my entire life. You know, I had a guy on this post call me a Cherokee princess. You know what I mean? And I can laugh about that because, you know, I think it's funny. There's a lot of ignorance, but it did affect me in my younger years. It's what created who I am now, and I have some armor as a result of being able to grow up in an environment where I'm light skinned, growing up amongst a Native community. You know, it's a perception. Honestly, I'm going to tell you something, Charles. Like, I honestly thought of myself in a way that really kind of paralleled, I can't ever say I totally understand or feel how blacks would feel in a community where they're a minority and they're not held in the same status. But I kind of understand. I kind of understand a little bit because I had to fight my way, you know, I had to fight a lot, and I had to, and the other interesting aspect of that was I got to hear racism on both sides because now I go to cross the borders, like I call it, growing up, going to a white school, and I got light skin, so I got to hear prejudice and comments as if I wasn't Native, talking about Natives, as if I wasn't one of them, right? And then vice versa, coming back to the reservation, and that's, you know, that's generational trauma, and there's a lot of hate. I don't want to go into all of that right now, but you know, maybe a future topic.
I think it'd be a future topic. Talk about real. Identity, diversity within diversity.
But we nog is
the word of the day. So we're gonna wrap up.
Absolutely.
I want to just wrap up with this. I started this conversation with talking about the African American community in Duluth and talking about Community Action Duluth. Obviously, the news is really bad, right? I think what I was trying to say is, regardless of what's going on with an African American individual in the community, it is the work of the African American leaders to either stand up for, inquire, be curious about what's going on, reach out, support that individual, whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. The worst time to abandon someone is when they're going through their worst times, right? So my message for any African American community leader who thinks they're in a leadership position is to reach out to whomever is going through anything, whatever African American person is going through anything. Just reach out, find out, be curious, and try to support them in the way that you can. We can't all just keep quiet when one person is going through issues. I was in that position at one point, and I knew what that felt like. Yeah, what I was involved in or participated in was really, really wrong, obviously. You know, that's why when you understand what you're being accused of, you take accountability. You do what you need to do to make things right. I did that in my own process. I'm not expecting all of the things that I've done to easily be wiped away because I'm, you know, one way or the other, like that's going to follow you. But the point is, we need African American leaders to stand up for their own people, whether they're right or wrong. Be curious about what's going on, reach out to them, right? Support them somehow, because if you don't support them, no one else is going to support them.